Is this going? I think it's going, yeah. Alright, FemmeFM episode 2. So I thought this week I would start out, since this is a new series, a new thing I'm doing, so you can get to know me better, 10 albums that have influenced my music taste. Album 1, Tapestry by Carole King. This album has been in my life for as long as I can remember. When I was a young child, I'd have trouble sleeping. So, which I still do, cannot sleep. And this was before we had smartphones, and so I would stay up reading Archie comics. Like, I was like a kid in the 50s, but this was the early 2000s. And I'd sneak out of my room and I'd say, Ma, can I hang out with you? And she'd say no, and I'd say, please. And then she was like, yeah, if you flip my tape over when it's done, or when we get midway. And it's funny, I feel like when you grow up like a little bit underclass or middle class or poor, you grow up with a lot of old technology, which is really fun, and I didn't realize at the time. I'm like, why do we have all this old shit? But we were playing tapes in like mid-2000s, late 2000s tapes. So Tapestry, Carole King. Oh, and there's so many tasty jams on here. You make me feel, you make me feel like a natural woman. It's so funny, when I started this channel, I'm like, oh, I can play music. No, I can't. Everything's copyrighted, so I'll just sing everything instead. And if you recognize these two lovely faces, you know where you lead. I will follow anywhere that you tell me to. If you need me to be with you, I will follow. Stars Hollow, bitch. Yes, we're talking Gilmore Girls. Although, so this song is just such a safe feeling. Oh, and then I rewatched Gilmore Girls recently. I was like, holy shit, Carole King owns the record store. And number 2, we have Beautiful Freak by Eels. And I will say the Eels over and over again because why aren't they called the Eels? Eels. Mark Oliver Everett's solo project, Eels. Also, he goes by the stage name E. And I'm not one for marriage, but I am for the marriage of melancholy and pop music, because that shit is fire when it's together. The Eels are such a precious band to me because they're the first band that I realized, or the first time I realized I could Google lyrics and then the song would pop up. I remember being about 7 years old and I heard it on this really indie, like, I don't think you would know it. It's a movie that not many people have seen, but it's definitely a critic's favorite. It is a beautiful masterpiece. I won't tell you it because you probably feel so uncool that you don't know it. But I remember hearing the lyrics that were like, I need some sleep, I can't go on like this. I try counting sheep, but there's one I always miss. And I was like, wow, I'm 7, I can't sleep. There is a sheep I always miss. Fuck, what is that? And then it came up with Eels. And that was the birthing of a very beautiful relationship I have had and I have with Eels. Now we're going on to perhaps controversial, fuck no, Avril Lavigne, Let Go. I very much, as a 7-year-old, thought that this is punk. Is this punk? I think it is. I'm 7. I don't know. I very much loved Avril Lavigne. I'm like, yes, androgyny, bitch. Let's wear a tie. Album number 4 that greatly influenced my taste is The Lonesome West by Modest Mouse. Modest Mouse was definitely the peak of my interest of indie music. I was no longer listening to Billy Talent. I was listening to Modest Mouse and Death Cab for Cutie, Built to Spill. They just got me into a lot of different type of indie rock. Album number 5, The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. I definitely formed some rebellious teenage instincts from this album. Rock and Roll Suicide. Oh, fuck. Time takes a cigarette and puts it in your mouth? Album number 6 of influential albums is Hi, How Are You by Daniel Johnston, also officially known as Hi, How Are You, the unfinished album. I thought it was untitled for a second. It's funny how I found out about Daniel Johnston of all places, the fucking OC soundtrack. Beck did a cover of True Love Will Find You in the end. It just sent me into a rabbit hole one night, and I found Daniel Johnston. I said,
holy shit, this is amazing. How didn't I know about Daniel Johnston before this?
I am just a goddamn sucker for crudely played instruments and a cracky voice. I like jagged shit. I like things that sound bad, are a little ugly, and there's so much beauty and realness to it. It's just, that's my shit. Number 7, we have Full Moon Fever by Tom Petty. Tom Petty, my dudes, has been in my life since I was a wee young kid. Of course, you hear it in every goddamn soundtrack of anything, but soundtracks, especially in my life, have helped me get into music. So, funny enough, Mr. Deeds, You Don't Know How It Feels plays in Mr. Deeds, and I loved it. And I know it's not actually on this album, but there are just so many slappers on this album anyways. Of course, the classic Free Fallin' and World Gone Mad. You're so bad. At number 9, she has Pavement, Crooked Rain. And a lovely little memory about how I heard it was this guy I used to hang out with in high school. He's a few years my senior, and he was always very high and very drunk, and he one time sat me down and he was like, you gotta listen to the song, it's about giving a haircut and it's ridiculous. And it was ridiculous, but I don't know, it just reminds me of the last time I'll ever have been jobless and okay with it, sleeping in, and probably the last time I have used a sploof, you know, with like the toilet paper roll with like the fabric sheet, and then you blow it out, and then nobody smells it apparently. I don't think that was the case. At number 9, she has Guitar Town by Steve Earle. As a kid growing up in the prairies in southern Saskatchewan, that is basically the deep south of Canada, I didn't like country growing up because I had a punk stick in my ass about liking anything that was popular or country. He certainly introduced me to some amazing folk and country outlaw artists, really got me into things like Willie Nelson, Blaze Foley, Townes Van Zandt, and just a whole bunch of other shit. But it was definitely revolutionary for a young gal who tried to hate country for the first 15 years of her life. Wasted years, my dudes. But at me now about the fucking Dixie Chicks. Punk rock as fuck. And now at 10, I have a newer one, a more contemporary one. Burn Your Fire for No Witness by Angel Olsen. This album will always be one of my favorites. Her vocals are, before then, hadn't been anything I'd heard before, and she definitely introduced me to more lady vocalists who did this really interesting kind of like dig deep in your chest and almost wail and cry it out. Gorgeous. And in this time, we definitely need to unfuck the world, which is a lovely, lovely song. I just thought this would be a fun way for you guys to get to know my music taste. This is just a skim in the top. We'll have a really sick episode next week. I can't wait for you to see it because it's going to be about